I'm Elijah. You see this? Looks nice, doesn't it? I don't like it. There's so many games here that just exist. I mean, Spider-Man 2. I mean, yeah, I know it exists, but it's not Mega Man 2. So I've decided to look at a game that does not exist. Like a baby. Sure, it has its own development cycle and needs love and care, but it's not. I just learned the hard things in life. History is a strange mystery. Many have claimed to see Jack the Ripper, others have forgotten about Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth. As you get old playing video games, you realize that they are a form of media that isn't well preserved as music or books. I mean, sure, there's stuff like audiobooks or MP3s, but video games, they don't get that type of fortune. See, most video games require specific hardware in order to run specific games that really don't last that long. Sure, people experience some old games in remakes and re-releases, and fans rip the game files and pop them online for emulators, but with video games, you mostly need to keep your old consoles to play those old games. But the thing is, there are just some games that cannot be played within today. Many have existed since people remember but are gone to this day, or people have claimed to be a thing but isn't anymore. So let's dive into some video games that once existed but were lost to time. Star Fox was one of the most ambiguous titles on the Super Nintendo for its 3D graphics and gameplay alone. With that, a sequel would be the next step for Star Fox, as Star Fox 2 would never be released. From what the problem was with the game is that it was finished, but they just refused to release it. This was just due to being released late into the SNES's lifespan, and then the N64 was coming out with a Star Fox game in the works. However, Nintendo in 2017 decided to butter up fans with the Super Nintendo Classic Edition and add Star Fox 2 on it, along adding it onto Nintendo Switch Online service. Now this thing feels useless. Almost. Hey, does anyone remember playing games on their family computer? Does anyone remember the websites for the networks at the time, like Cartoon Network, Disney Channel, and Nickelodeon? Remember playing the games on those things? Hell, let's not even stop there. Remember stuff like Club Penguin? I don't. I was a Pop Tropica kid. Pop Tropica was so fun. You get to go around in these islands, customize your own characters, do all this wacky stuff from books. It was just so awesome. And all of this was done with Flash. I'm pretty sure you know where this was going. After Flash kinda, died, all the magic in the world was gone. Hell, I actually went back to Pop Tropica to see what changed, and I never felt so distant from something I practically grew up with. But there is a way to play the old games back, so that's a step. But there are no chat rooms, so we'll just open one publicly and just see what happens. The internet is kind of awesome at most times, but back in the day, as you grow up, you kind of believe that it was the best place to be. And for me, that was kind of the case, because we were kind of in a renaissance if you think about it. So what did the people before me do without the internet? Many of which said video games, but what if I told you that there was a way that they could have gotten video games online? Well, that's one way to segue into the next topic, the Sega Channel and the Satellaview for the Sega Genesis in the US and the Super Nintendo in Japan, respectively. The Satellaview was basically a broadcast modem with games being broadcasted at specific times. Some of these games were add-ons to games released via cartridges, and some were just flat-out games that weren't sold via cartridges. Some examples of these were The Legend of Zelda: The Ancient Stone Tablets and Kirby's Toy Box. The Ancient Stone Tablets was a Telltale-like episodic video game with some link to the past gameplay and visuals. However, one of the things that sets it apart from other Satellaview games was the sound lock technology, which streamed orchestrate music as well as something else called live voice, with the narrator giving the players plot expositions and hints. Sure, you can emulate the game nowadays, but you're not going to get the same experience without the orchestrate music or narration. In Kirby's Toy Box, some of the games were found for emulation, but there is still some missing. But I doubt that most Americans at the time had a Satellaview, but I'm sure they had a Sega Channel. Now the Sega Channel works completely different to the Satellaview, as the Sega Channel was more of a cable service with you paying to play games but also get cheat codes. Some games that were on the service were some country exclusives like Pulseman 2, and some that would never get a cartridge like Mega Man The Wily Wars. It was a compilation of the first 3 Mega Man games from the NES, but it was in 16-bit with its own mode called Wily's Tower, and it allowed you to use all of the 3 games' Robot Masters. It got a cartridge in Europe, but never in the US, with the exception of repro carts, until the Genesis Mini came along. Also, the internet was preserving it. Now, with that said, you could be proud with the internet, but also be disappointed at the same time. Because one day you could be go gallivanting and then go, man, I want to play Thrill Kill, but there's no CD of it. Well, there's a ROM online and there you go, you have earned this title. The internet is kind of a make it or break it spot. Even with most online multiplayer games, those things can be taken off at any time. Most games that suffer have the same fate, with most fans coming together and preserving it with their own servers. And other times, rest in peace, but that's not all. What about the digital store only games? Most of the time they would get a physical release if it only makes sense. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World was the game that got fans crying about that the game based on 2D beat-em-ups from the arcades based on a movie based on a graphic novel was gone. But they got their Scott Pilgrim back in 2021. Why take it so long? I don't know, but hey, they still got it. PT, short for Playable Teaser, was a demo for the brand new Silent Hill game Silent Hills, and yet that never came out. However, you can still play the teaser as long as your PS4 has it downloaded. A majority of the Wii software dubbed WiiWare is all but gone due to the Wii Shop channel being closed down back in 2019. Well, the WAD files are still online. If you have the know-how to hack your Wii, you're in WiiWare Haven. The same thing also happened with the Wii U and 3DS. Can't forget about that. The Simpsons arcade game was available on Xbox Live Arcade back on the 360, but it was taken out. See, with the internet, it still manages to screw over console owners and companies in the ass. But with the world of gaming, there's always that one topic. The mobile phone market has some delistings of games that really hurt me on the inside. Angry Birds was one of those games that caused me to be who I am today. And when I first got my phone, it was nowhere in sight. That was back in like 2015, so what gives? However, the game is back under the name Red's First Flight, but when you download it, it's just Angry Birds. And it's also 99 cents. What is that, taxes? I don't need that, I have Angry Birds. Another example is Disneyland Explore. It was more or less a showcase of Disney California with a couple of slideshows and interactive rides. Where's My Water had a Phineas and Ferb tie-in game called Where's My Perry, and that's gone too! Hell, Temple Run 2 doesn't feel like anything it was back in 2015. I mean, it's still Temple Run 2, but in my opinion, it doesn't look the same as how I did back when I was a little child. But as that saying that the world goes, we have lost so many things into the world in other forms of media. And that's not me trying to downplay it. It's estimated that the film industry has lost 75% of silent films before 1930. See, right there is history that was not well preserved. I mean, I've also lost some footage for some videos, but a majority of stuff from the 40s to now can be preserved some way or another. In reprints, on computers, etched onto a tablet, gets preserved one way or another. Video games, as much as you put them in a time capsule, most of the time they will never work. But again, there are some ways to save some games, like with emulation and re-releases. But most of the times, it's always up in arms on what video games get to be preserved and what don't. But at most times, it's also the fans that are doing the preserving work, and most of the game companies are not doing that and suing emulators. I mean, really, is that what we're going for? I mean, damn. But then again, who am I to tell a company on how they should release legacy content? And that's why I do it. To the best of my abilities. Yeah, I don't know what gotten into me. That sounds like my wholesome message board.
Alright, let's see what wholesome messages were sent.